One of the deadliest fires in recent Greensboro history sparked change. Last night, the Greensboro City Council changed an ordinance following an apartment fire that killed 5 children. The changes make it easier for inspectors to check properties for possible dangers. WFMY News 2's Alma McCarty learned it'll crack down on slumlords and make living conditions safer.
It was a tragedy beyond belief, casting a shadow over the Summit Avenue apartments in Greensboro. 5 refugee children killed in a fire.
That kind of hurt my heart.
But that horrific event back on May 12th started a chain reaction, shedding light on a citywide problem of substandard housing. City inspectors found hundreds of violations and condemned all but one of the units at the complex. Then this week, City Council passed new housing rules to keep a closer eye on rental properties.
It really gets at properties that are not compliant with our ordinances and then become compliant and shortly thereafter become non-compliant. It allows the city to be more proactive with those persistently problematic properties.
If inspectors find major violations in one unit, they'll now be allowed to inspect other units in that same building. Councilmember Justin Outling says that way they can find other potential hazards sooner.
Lots of persons in the community recognize that they're fortunate enough to live in good, safe, and healthy housing. But the key is all of us deserve that.
Renters who live elsewhere in the city say these changes are overdue, especially after seeing what happened on Summit Avenue.
Can't be the only one that's in this kind of condition, so I'd say keep up on it.
I think it should be inspected. But there's not anything wrong with mine, but I think that all of them should be inspected because it could be some hazard.
I just want to keep my home and pay my rent and live comfortably. That's all I want here.
New rules and a renewed effort to make sure all homes are safe.
Before last night's vote, some questioned whether the new rules would be a violation of the Constitution's Fourth Amendment regarding illegal search and seizure. Outling says the changes are modeled after a state law.